Are there any corrections to the last regular meeting's minutes? Being none, they'll stand as approved. The next item is a time for public comment. If anyone would like to speak on anything that is not on the agenda, please do so now. You have 5 minutes for each person. Okay, guess there aren't any. So we'll move on to 6.
Mayor, I will draw your attention to some public comment that was provided in writing by Dwayne West, a letter to the commissioners. If you'd like me to read it, I will. If you'd rather I pass on that just for the public's benefit, I'll tell you that it asked some questions regarding the purchase of the Swift packing plant, essentially asking if we plan on doing our due diligence on environmental or getting costs for demolition and cleanup. And then that's in the first or second paragraph, and the remaining 5 paragraphs offer opinion on that. I'll address the questions and stay away from the opinion. The questions, yes, we do plan on doing environmental due diligence and getting as best estimate of costs associated with the property as we can. The agreement you approved at the last meeting and authorized Randy to finalize negotiations of is critical in being allowed on the property to do all of that. And so until such time as we could get sort of the macro terms worked out, getting in and finishing our due diligence, our on-site due diligence wasn't possible. So Randy, do you have anything to add to that?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
Item 6A, Jose Garcia Golden Ring Circus requests governing body consideration of a waiver or reduction in the $2,500 deposit for circus special events.
Is that money used for cleanup generally after the circus leaves?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That fee that's charged?
Yes,
Just
if it's needed.
if the,
If
yeah.
it's needed. If it's not needed, then the deposit is returned.
Do you even cash the check?
Yes,
You do?
yes.
I think that might be a
So
good way
this
to
is a
go.
deposit, and what's needed will be used and what's not is returned. And so while it's certainly more difficult to come up with 2,500 than 1,000, it's not a flat fee that you don't get back at all.
They pay a $300 fee per day for the carnival, and he wants to come for 3 days.
So they will pay a $900
$900
Fee.
fee,
Yes.
and
That they-
in addition to
and-
that, a $2,500 deposit.
Yes.
And that rate was changed, my memory serves me a couple years ago, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, in response to, I don't know if any of the existing members of the commission were on the commission at that time, but it seems it was in response to the flyer remediation that generally results from a circus having been in town. From our utility poles, from windows of merchants that didn't necessarily request those to be there, public spaces, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, I don't think the terms that we have established is out of line, especially if they get a refund if those funds aren't needed.
I make a motion that we deny the request.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Mayor and Commissioners, I'd like to recognize our employees who've achieved some special milestones in their service to the city. And if you want to join me down here, Mayor. I'm going to start with 10 years of service.
Well, so you want to go on the way of the agenda?
Okay, I'll go with the way of the agenda. We'll start with 20 years of service first. And if I call your name, if you come down here, and we'd like to take your picture with the mayor. And if I take the picture, I'll probably be in it too. Salvador Guerrero. Salvador's with the Parks Department and is celebrating 20 years of service. Thank you.
Thank you, Salvador. Thank
There
you.
you are. If you want to turn this way and stand in between the mayor and I.
20 years, huh?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Ron Fry, who's the driver for the Solid Waste Department, isn't here today, but he's celebrating 20 years of service too. We'd like to thank him. So, congratulations. Just in case he DVR'd it on Channel 8. Ken's here, Battalion Chief with the Fire Department. Ken's celebrating 20 years of service. Thanks, Ken.
One more. Thank you.
Tanya Bradley. Tanya is celebrating 10 years of service with the Garden City Police Department. Thanks for keeping Thank you very much. Pablo Holguin. Pablo is celebrating 10 years with Lee Richardson Zoo. Thank you very much. Thank you. Jeremy Moore. And Jeremy's celebrating 10 years with Garden City Fire Department. Thank you. Diana Sanford with the Garden City Police Department, celebrating 10 years of service. David Smith, celebrating 10 years of service with Garden City Police Department. Cindy Doogie. Cindy's celebrating 10 years of service with Garden City Police Department. Thank you. Thank you very much, and we appreciate all of our employees, and it's nice to celebrate each year those milestone years of service. So congratulations, and here's for many more. And everybody is welcome to stay and watch the rest of the meeting. If you don't want to do that, you're free to leave now.
Chickens.
We'll wait for just a second. Let them-
That'll make a commotion.
Sorry, girls, I tried.
Thank you.
He gets attached to you.
Now it's just the guys that have to, girls that have to do it.
Yeah, and that cleared out a bit too.
Item 7A, Mayor and Commissioners, under report of the City Manager. There's a memo attached from FCDC Chairman Tom Walker advising us that the position currently held by Kathy McKinley is up for consideration again, and so The FCDC, as per their process, will advertise. Then they forward letters of interest to the member agency, us in this instance. And we will have interviews set up for those people expressing an interest, assuming there's multiple ones, and give the opportunity to the commissioners to ask them questions. Right now, it's anticipated that we would do that as part of our pre-meeting workshop time on January 5th. So those interviews would be open to the public if folks wanted to come in and watch those. On the meeting of January 5th, the commission will be able to choose their representative to the FCEDC board, if that's your choice to do so. Item 7B, staff reports from the police department, the zoo, and then also the sales tax report from Melinda Hitz. If you have questions on any of that information. Hearing none, I'll call your attention to the meetings of note. Anything requiring an RSVP, please get that to Sealand. Item 8A is the appropriation ordinance. If approved, it would be number 2401-2015A.
I move that we approve ordinance number 2401-2015A.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Item 9A, the governing body is asked to consider and approve for the renewal of the RHID resolution, which outlines the policy and use of RHIDs within the city of Garden City for 2016. If approved, it would be resolution number?
2645-2015.
Carol?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Commissioners. This is just the annual RHID renewal. Basically, it's just renewing the policy, making it enabling Garden City to participate in this program as the cases come available. As when someone applies for an RHID, that will be a separate approval process. This is just giving us the rights to keep this program for the year 2016. And that's basically what this resolution is for. We've done it every year since the inaugural year of the RHIDs. If you have any questions.
I make a motion to approve resolution 2645-2015.
Second.
It's been a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion carried. Thank you, Carol.
Item 9B, the governing body is asked to consider and approve an ordinance authorizing the Central Fire Station addition and the acquisition of the JBS property and a resolution for providing for temporary financing. If approved, the ordinance would be number
2715-2015.
2715-2015, and item number 2, the resolution, if approved, would be resolution number 2646-2015. You may recall at the previous meeting, this was on the agenda for the amount necessary or estimated to be needed for the improvement to the Central Fire Station based on the decision to acquire the JBS Swift property. We asked that this item be removed so that we could adjust the total temporary financing amount and only do one temporary financing issuance and combine those, and then we repackage that and put that on this agenda.
I have a question.
Yes.
How does that work where we really haven't purchased that ground yet?
These funds would be available for that purpose, and if you did not use those, they would be returned. Which in this case, it's us lending from our idle funds to the purpose. It would be returned to where they were sitting.
So we're not really taking out. Well, we're taking out GOB, right?
Not now.
Not
The
now.
temporary
Until-
financing is an up to 2-year bridge until
Okay.
we're at a point. So this would allow us to know the final costs for both the Central Fire Station and the final costs related to the real estate purchase agreement. Melinda, I probably should refrain from answering financial questions.
Yeah.
Do you want to?
I think you answered it correctly. It is temporary financing that we're going to be issuing for the fire department and for the purchase of the JBS property. What will happen is you have the authority up to this amount to issue temporary notes, like say to different funds within the city, can purchase those as we need the money. It's a pot of money that's just sitting there. If you don't spend it, then we're not going to be issuing any debt on it later on.
Okay.
So it's just a way to show
That we approved it.
that you have approved it. When you sign that sales contract with JBS, you have to be able to prove that you have the money to pay for it.
Yeah.
So, and this money would be available for that purpose.
Okay,
Okay?
great,
Thanks.
thank you.
Mhm.
And so we're working still through due diligence and all that kind of thing. This is not the final
No,
signing of a sales
no.
agreement, so.
So we haven't sent a signed document to SWIFT, and they have not signed the document either, but we needed to get on the property to do our environmental assessments and also some issues related to the water quality, and we now have that authority after last week.
I make a motion to approve ordinance 2715-2015.
I'll second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Madam Chairman, may I make a comment, please?
Yes.
I was not here at the start of the meeting, and I guess the city manager made some comments.
Can you come up to the podium and state your name, please?
I got to carry my cane with me, I apologize for that. Not that. Anyway. Oh, I apologize for having gotten the letter to you folks at a late time. I got it done before Thanksgiving, and I didn't realize that the management office was going to be that proficient and have everything out ahead of Thanksgiving, because you could spoil your turkey looking over your packet, which I'm sure you all did. But anyway, as I say, I apologize for getting that letter to you late, but I take it from what the manager said that you're not going to make any final decision about the purchase of the property or so on at this point today. Is that right, Mr. Manager?
Right, we've approved the terms of an agreement, which allows us to get on the property to finish doing our due diligence on the
Sure.
property, so that we're comfortable
Sure.
with
Okay.
that what is being represented we're going to buy is indeed what we're going to buy, or to the extent to which
Okay.
the environmental concerns match what we understand them to be.
Well, I just have raised some issues in there that I think are pretty pertinent to this whole project.
We would agree. That's why we want to do our due diligence.
Right, I understand, and so, and I think the water rights issue is a different thing than the other projects, whereas it seems to me. So that's fine, but it's the other project that I think, especially I would urge you to look at that letter again and do a lot of thinking about this thing before you proceed, because if we had a private company that was wanting to do this, then that'd be a horse of a different flavor. But you folks may have a lot more faith in the administration in Topeka than I do, and I know that maybe KDOT is just a little bit different, but still, anyway, I think it's things that we really ought to know about and need to think about before we make a commitment to do this, because we did this a number of years ago out at the airport with a project for a seed company, and they weren't there very long, and then we ended up with it, and we put a lot of money in that, and and then the commission afterwards sold it kind of for a pittance, and then they had to buy it back to put another guy in there. So I'm just hoping that you'll be very, very cautious about the whole matter, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you
Brian.
very much.
Lana?
Madam Mayor, Lana Duval, Finney County Economic Development. You all are well aware as elected officials that this is not a public project that we're considering on this property. This would be part of a public-private partnership with the Kansas Department of Transportation and their funds, as well as BNSF as the rail partner and private stakeholders within our community. We've asked for no public dollars to be invested in the long-term project on that site. So I just, for the public's benefit, think it's important that folks know that. It's important to have a full understanding of where we're going with that project. So thank you. You're welcome to stop by and ask questions.
I certainly have talked to some of your board members about it, and I appreciate that very much.
We're happy to answer any questions.
Sure, you bet.
Okay, we had a motion and a second, and any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Item 9A is, well, we don't have any.
Were we doing two separate?
Oh, yeah, I'm
motions?
sorry.
Yeah,
You're right.
resolution, yeah.
I would move to approve resolution number 2646.
I'll second it.
There's been a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Apologize, item 11A, which would be under new business. The governing body is asked to consider and approve an agreement for professional services between the Southwest Kansas Coalition and Pinniger and Smith and Associates. This has been an item already on your previous meeting's agenda under consent agenda. This normally would be the type of thing we put as a new business, but since we're bringing it back, I felt it required some explanation. The amount that was previously identified as the cost that would be divided wasn't correct on the first meeting we sent you. The fee agreement would be $39,500 annually. That would be divided 3 ways by Garden City, Dodge City, and Liberal. And this is for lobbying services that are that each community agrees on as far as the development of our legislative platform, which you approved at the last meeting and we discussed at a joint meeting several weeks ago. In September, again, under the consent agenda, the City Commission approved an agreement with Pinniger Smith and Associates to provide services specifically for the City of Garden. I'm sorry. The previous agreement you approved was with Pinniger and Smith for just the Garden City lobbying. The contract fee, I'm butchering this. Where are you, Ashley?
Okay, let's
Bail
just
me
make
out.
this simple. In September, you approved a contract between the City of Garden City and Pinniger Smith and Associates for $25,000. At one point, you also approved an agreement between SKC and Pinniger Smith, and the number that we had in there was $25,000. That was an error. That was the number that's between the city and SKC, or the city and Pinniger Smith. So this is for SKC and Pinniger Smith with the correct amount of $39,500, of which the city will be responsible for 1/3.
Okay.
Thank you, Ashley.
Thank you.
I don't know why I even started that. Maybe I thought I would make it quicker. Didn't work. In addition to this, we're members of the League of Kansas Municipalities, and there's annual membership dues there. We're also members of the Kansas Municipal Utilities Association. Those two would be considered, I think, by most definitions to be lobbying organizations, even though they also provide some services, some trainings and things like that. But those are things that we actually pay a fee for to be a member of that represent all cities or all municipal utilities. The reason I bring all this up is there has been some interest in the legislature over recent years to fully disclose the extent to which public funds are used for lobbying services. I will tell you that the sum of these services is maybe around $40,000 to $45,000. Don't know our League of Kansas Municipalities bill right off the top of my head, but all in, we probably pay for professional representation in Topeka on matters important to municipalities in general, but also specifically to the city of Garden City, something up to, but not, in my estimation, exceeding $50,000. And more of the lines of probably $40,000. So do that for your awareness, but also to critics who say we don't fully disclose that.
I make the a motion to approve the agreement for professional services between the SKC and Pinnaker Smith and Associates.
Second?
There's been a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Item 11B, the governing body's asked to consider and approve the distribution of the Downtown Development Fund for the applications which the city has received to date. We've provided a memo, and I'm going to learn from my mistakes and just have Carol or Caleb take it from the top.
Okay. I just want to add something on the RHID renewal that I was going to mention, but I forgot. Since I get another chance to get up here, I can mention it. Next commission meeting, we will be having a pre-meeting, and in that meeting, we'll be having a housing update. And that meeting will kind of go over where we are with our current RHIDs and where we're expecting 2016, so that you'll kind of have, now that you've approved the resolution, you'll kind of have a heads up on where we're at and kind of where we stand for the following year.
And our plan is to invite our partners in the RHID,
Correct.
which are the other three taxing
We're going
entities.
to, right,
Here for
invite USD 457, the college, and Finney County as well to that pre-meeting.
Thanks, Carol.
Thank you. Okay, now the Downtown Development Fund. We have, in your packets, you have 4 applications that we had received at the time that we submitted this information. I do want to mention that we've had a lot of interest in this program. We did receive a completed application yesterday, so an additional one, so we now have 5. But this decision today is just on the 4 that you have received in your packet. We've also had other inquiries on the Downtown Development Fund. The fund amounts are $250,000, with $200,000 being used for building costs and $50,000 being reserved for professional fees. All of the applicants have requested the fees be paid for the building costs. None of them have requested to be reimbursed for the professional fees. And then in addition to this, in a previous commission meeting, you all have voted to allow either applicant to participate in the Neighborhood Revitalization Program or the Downtown Development Fund, and not both at the same time. At this time, Garnan has applied for the Neighborhood Revitalization Program and this Downtown Development Fund. So with them, it's going to be either or at this time. The 4 applicants that we do have are Hutton Construction, Garnan Funeral Home. We have Elba Madrid, which is, I can't remember the name of her.
Hotspot.
Hotspot, yes. I have it written down here somewhere. Okay, and then Brown Shoes is the 4th applicant. In your packet, we did make up a little chart to kind of show you all the applicants, how much they're requesting. This is kind of a summary of the applicants, the value of the project, their fund request, and then we also put in the Neighborhood Revitalization 10-year revenue stream. And this is if they participated in the NRP, Neighborhood Revitalization Program, this is the amount that they would receive over that 10-year period. However, if you consider if we were to grant them all of that money up front, we took a neighborhood revitalization or an NRP equivalent to determine that amount. And basically what that was we took we took the NPV value and we multiplied that by 6.5% and then multiplied it by those 10 years. And that's just the basic formula that we use for all of our equivalents that we determine here in the city. And then we also determined an NRP discount equivalent. And the way the downtown is right now, the values of the properties are a little bit, they're in their own district and they have a little bit of a different value over time. So we took off 20%, and that's that discounted table or last item there on that table. And that shows basically the NRP equivalent minus 20% or 80% of the NRP equivalent. And that's kind of what staff feels is more likely the value that these properties would be over time.
Might be important to note, Carol, the NRP 10-year revenue stream number, and then which ultimately helps arrive at the last two columns amount, is an in-house estimate. We don't control tax value. What we're doing is we're saying everything else is controlled and level, and whatever the column 1, which is the value that the applicant has placed on the project, is fully realized and interpreted dollar for dollar the same way by the appraiser's office. That's what that revenue stream, the resulting revenue stream would be. So there's not, if you choose to do an NRP or the applicant chooses to do the NRP, should never be interpreted that that's a guaranteed revenue stream, because if the valuation doesn't change at all, there's no revenue stream because there's no increment. So there's a lot of assumptions that kind of come into this, but we're doing our best to say, all things being equal, if the value of the project is fully realized in the taxable valuation and ultimately the tax stream, that's what's going to happen.
And it is extremely difficult to determine what the valuation will be for these properties after their improvements. As Matt said, that 10-year revenue stream it's a flat. We didn't raise it up any. It's flat, and it's all dependent on the values that they're assessed at and also the mill levy. So there's a lot of variables in that one. So yes, as Matt said, we did the best we could, is just kind of give you an estimate of what that would be. And so in determining what, as the commission knows that you are here today to determine the distribution of the funds with these 4 projects that we do have applications for. So there's quite a few alternatives, as you could think of, that you could choose. So we came up with 5, and I'd like to go over 5 of them, the 5 that we have down in the packet. And obviously you do have a decision or a choice. You could choose any one of these 5 or a combination of your own. But number 1 is to fully fund all 4 projects, and that actually, all the 4 projects totaled out, that would be $536,000. However, since we've only allotted $250,000 in the general fund for this fund, that would require $286,000 additional funding to come out of the general fund from the governing body. The second alternative is to fully fund Madrid's project and Brown Shoes there, and then also divide the remaining amount between Hutton and Garnand, which would be $72,000 to each project, and that would total $200,000. Now this would leave $50,000 in the fund to kind of be earmarked for professional fees if somebody else were to apply and ask for professional fees on that. The third alternative would be to fully fund Madrid and Fire, just as the previous alternative, but then to fund Garnand and Hutton at $50,000 each. This would total $156,000. This action would leave $44,000 in the fund for building costs and $50,000 for the professional fees. The alternative number 4 would be to fund the 2 larger projects using the NRP equivalent, and fund the 2 small projects using the full fund request amount. This total distribution would be $182,000, leaving $50,000 in professional fees and $18,000 in the building cost fund. And then the final alternative that we have listed is to fund all 4 projects using the NRP discount equivalent. And if each applicant were given this equivalent, the distribution would be $110,960. And this would leave $50,000 in professional fees and $89,040 for the building cost fund. And this would go back into the fund for 2015 for any additional applicants, and it also would carry over into 2016. Recommendation for the governing body, you have the decision to make to choose either one of the alternatives presented, or you can create a new viable option. In the fiscal note, we just have it listed out how much, if each, depending on which alternative is chosen, if these alternatives are chosen, how much of the money would come out of the general fund and how much would be supplied by the applicant, totaling $770,000, and that's the anticipated amount spent in downtown, in the development of downtown. I know it's a lot of information, so if you have any questions.
I've got a sixth idea.
Okay, yes.
If you take each one of these, 240 for Hutton, you divide that by the total, which is 536,000. That's roughly 44.7%. And then take that times either the 200,000, so that each party gets a percentage of the 200,000.
44.7 each.
Well, not just the top two, and then the other three, or the other two would be a smaller percent, obviously, but that was something I thought about and thought I'd throw it out. It's that way you fund all four, but you fund them. You just use the 200,000. In other words, it's a percentage of that. But I can't vote on it anyway, but because I got a conflict with one of the parties. But I throw that out as an alternative here to what you presented. So you just divide 20,800 by that 536, you get a, I don't know what that is. I think it's roughly 536.
Well, let's back up a second. One of the rules is $200,000 per project, max.
I
No,
thought it could be
total.
up to 250, and you could use 50 of it for professional fees. That was my understanding of it originally.
I'm reading from the application where it says the program will reimburse 80% of eligible costs paid up to $200,000 per project.
But we only
So-
got 250,000 in the
Well,
project.
you're right.
I
but
mean,
I'm
total.
And then you could apply for the professional fees side of it. So in theory, there could be a single project that came by that requested $250,000. Now, at the end of the day, the money can be used however
Right.
3 of the 5 of you want
Right.
to use it. We tried to design a program that we could then go market to interested parties that said, here's what we think the rules are at this point in time. And so, not anticipating what we get, is this going to be 1 or 2 large $4 million projects, or is this going to be a collection of smaller projects, or a little bit of both? So now that we have real projects finally in the mix, I think we get a little bit more sense of maybe how these work out. And these are lines of thought. These aren't particularly recommendations. It's just, I mean, you could go through and pick any percentage, and we could make up an endless string of alternatives. Really what it boils down to is you've got 4 applications in front of you. You've got $250,000 available. How do you want to spend it? Do you want to spend it? If you do want to spend it, how do you want to spend it?
Are you recusing yourself? Is that what you said earlier?
From voting, yeah.
Can I throw something out? My feelings are that the $200,000 was put aside or created for the downtown business to be able to enhance that, to make it either look better in appearance or safety-wise, whatever it has to be. And certainly, you know, 2 of these projects may or may not go if they get it or they don't get it. Yeah, Elba probably wouldn't do her project if she didn't get anything at all. It would be put off for a long time.
I have to do it.
Okay, and then the Brown Shoes has got a great idea for the front of the structure to make it look like it does downtown, and I think that's that's one of the things that's gonna benefit the downtown area, and I think Eva's gonna help her area out there and being able to use that for more stuff than what you're using by bringing it up to code. And
Right.
I see the importance in that. You know, I see Hutton's Construction Company as they had already filed their paperwork and was getting ready to drink out of the trough of their own water to do their own construction, to build that building on their own. I mean, they were gonna go ahead and go forward with that. Gurnan's is just adding on. I just think that, you know, it's up to the entire commission, but I think it should be designed, in my opinion, if we're gonna have to spend $200,000, it's either a beautification program to downtown to make it look better, or to help businesses to do some remodeling that's down there to enhance them, because after all, we're after those people to have successful business, bringing in the tax dollars and increase their property value at the same time. And we get such little out of a building that houses offices and stuff of that nature, except for the property value. We don't get any sales tax value at all on those places. So I look at something that if we're going to do, we ought to do it in where we can help the business people downtown to be able to offer more business opportunities and bring more money, sales money in that way. That's just my opinion. We do have basically 6 options now that Dan has brought up his, but it's going to be a hard one to come up with to make sure that it's fair and equal all the way around, and we will have another round in 2016, I guess, possibly again if we see that the need is there.
That would be up to the commission to fund that, but, you know, I think when we talked about it, my memory is the commission said, well, here's $250,000 as sort of seed money. If this thing works, then, you know, the theory, you sort of have a revenue stream to refund it. I think we were optimistic that it would work, given the downtown's involvement in helping create it, and they did that based on talking to people interested in doing businesses and, you know, what are some of the hurdles, and this program was really designed to remove some of those hurdles. And so I think it's likely that you could reinvest the $250,000, but it isn't budgeted at this point, and it would have to be a separate decision made by the commission.
Well, I'm very encouraged with the response to this program, and I would like to see it perpetuate. I'd like to, hopefully, we'll be able to fund some more of these applicants that haven't been turned in yet when they do get turned in. But I would like, we do have another one that's just been turned in and one more that was turned in but just not complete.
Yeah,
I think.
yeah, we have one completed that's been turned in, and I believe 4 others that are in various states of completeness are working on getting a packet.
So maybe we should reserve some for these next projects.
We'll do them next year.
Well, but that's, yeah,
Uh-huh.
we've only got less than 30 days now before the end of the year.
Commissioner, Dan,
Yeah.
I don't know what your conflict is, whether you own some of these properties or one, or providing professional services, but as counsel, I think I'd recommend that you not participate in the discussion, if that's the case. And that's to protect you and any conflict of interest, and also having somebody look at it and possibly redo the process.
Mm-hmm.
So it's always been my recommendation that if a commissioner has a conflict, that they step down during the discussion of the issue. But it's each commissioner's own decision whether or not they want to recognize a conflict and step down. So that's my advice. It's consistent with what I've told other commissioners over the years.
Well, I mean, it was professional services. That's what it was. But I don't have a problem with that.
Okay.
I'll shut up.
Commissioners, any other thoughts? I'll move that we select option number 3, the fully fund Madrid and Thayer and partially fund Garnett and Hutton.
Second?
There's been a motion and second. Any further discussion? None being, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Abstain. You get that?
And thank you for those of you that are submitted projects. Thank you for your interest in the program.
50.
Thank you, guys. That will help a lot.
3,
Yes,
alternative 3.
yes.
Just making sure.
I probably should have read it.
20,800.
Mayor and Commissioners, item 11C, the governing body is asked to review and consider bids received for the 2016 property and liability insurance coverage. You want to do this, or you want me to read your memo? Okay. The city currently has property and liability insurance coverage provided through Travelers Insurance and with our agent brokers, Rudder Klein Associates. This policy runs from 1/1 to 12/31 and therefore expires at the end of this month. Staff recommends accepting the Travelers Insurance package as proposed by Rudder Klein Associates. The package premium, including all applicable commissions for the recommended program, is $314,275,000. The analysis of the quotes as provided by our third-party insurance advisor, Charlesworth and Associates, is included in the packet. If you've got any questions, you can ask Celine, and she can answer or make me guess. Got it?
I make a motion that we approve the renewal for Rudder Klein and Associates and Travelers Insurance as outlined in the
Second.
memo.
I'll second.
There's been a motion and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Thank you. And I believe if we stay with sort of the 3-year cycle of competitive review, next renewal would be the next time that we go out for
Bid.
competitive 2 years from now? Okay. Correction, 2 years from now. In 2017. Yeah, all right. Item 11D, governing body is asked to concur with the Compensation Committee's recommendation of the Hay Group pay plan beginning January 1st, 2016. The Compensation Committee is a blend of senior management and with 2 representatives from the City Commission to examine matters related to employee pay and benefits. In the last year, we've completed the update or the review of the Hay Group pay plan, which was implemented in 2008. And the goal of this was to assess market competitiveness in each of the positions, re-identify minimums, midpoints, and maximums, and then make recommendations for any adjustments viewed as necessary. There's 2 phases of what the Hay Group plan identified and what the Compensation Committee is recommending. Phase 1 could be described as moving anybody that fell below the new minimums up to the minimums of that position. Phase 2 could be described as moving people based on years of service in the grade to a relationship with the midpoint. So kind of visualize pay vertically, and there's pay bands within that. If a pay band is readjusted and someone's pay is below the minimum, phase 1 moves them up to the minimum. And let's say you have a series of those, and then because the pay plan moved, you may have somebody that has 5, 6, or 7 years in grade now in close relationship to somebody that has less than 1 year of service in grade. And so you alleviate a little bit of longevity compression. As a reminder, no pay plan is perfect, and so there isn't, we can't ever have a perfect relationship between 18 different business units, and certainly in a compressed public sector salary range overall. But phase one we think is critical to recruitment of employees, and that is to be competitive in our minimums, midpoints, and maximums. Phase two alleviates compression, particularly in the sort of the front end of the pay plan. It doesn't alleviate compression in the upper end of the pay scale. It doesn't alleviate compression for that can sometimes be found between different levels of supervision, particularly those when you move from an hourly position to a salary position. But it does alleviate the two most critical areas. We identify the cost to the general fund of phase one to be $49,000, just short of $50,000. To the utility funds or the non-general funds, non-taxing funds, $82,000. The second priority would cost $128,000 estimated to the taxing funds. To the non-taxing funds, $155,000. I don't believe that 2016 total estimated expenses is correct.
Yes, it is.
Should that be the sum of the other four numbers?
No, the second priority is with the base salaries. That's both.
Oh, with that's the, okay, I got you. All right, so I misspoke. If you do both first and second priority, the totals to those two funds are as shown, 155 and 128. Thanks, Ally.
I make a motion that we approve the Hay Group pay plan and implementation strategy with the first and second priority.
I'll second. Any discussion?
Mayor and Commissioners, can I add something on for the financial? The approval of this would require the Commission to reflect these changes in the amended 2016 budget that would be adopted by virtue of adopting the 2017 budget. I just wanted you to be fully aware that the funds that we're requesting here aren't funds that have been budgeted in salary line items for the 2016 budget, but that would be taken into consideration when the 2016 amended budget is drafted and finally approved.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Thank you, and thank you to Ally and all the staff that's worked on this project over the last more than a year, I think, several months. Item 9E, there's advisory board recommendations. We'll begin with the airport board.
I make a motion to approve the airport board advisory's appointment recommendation.
Jet.
Very appropriate.
Jet DeSalvo.
Airport advisory board.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Item E2, the Building Safety Board of Appeals needs 6 appointments. There are 6 identified in the memo provided by Caleb.
I make a motion that we approve the 6 appointments to the Building Safety Board of Appeals.
I'll second. There's been a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion carried.
There are 2 appointments for the Garden City Board of Zoning Appeals.
I move that we accept Kevin Campbell and Sean Collins to serve on the Garden City Board of Zoning Appeals.
Second.
There's been a motion and second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion carried.
There are 3 appointments required for the Landmarks Commission.
I move to approve the recommendation of the committee to appoint Brian Nilsson and Valerie Hess to the Landmarks Commission, and also Julie Christner.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion carried.
E5, the Planning Commission requires 1 appointment.
And that is,
I make a motion that we approve the Planning Commission recommendation for the appointment.
The recommendation was to choose between one of the 2 names provided for the 1 position. The position that's coming up is set to expire is Brian Schwint, December 31st, 2015, who was appointed, I believe, to fill an unexpired term maybe a year ago. And he's expressed interest in serving a full term, which would go through December 31st, 2018. And then there's the additional person is someone that's filled that out on their form.
I make a motion that we approve Brian Schwint to the term to fill out the Planning Commission appointment.
second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion carried.
With that, I think we're ready for the consent agenda. If approved, it would be item 11F1 through 600.
I move that we approve the consent agenda, item F1 through 600.
Second.
I'll second.
There's been a motion and second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Here, the last business item is an executive session. If you believe the commission won't be taking any action following that item, then I would recommend you move on to commission reports, and then we can shut down Channel 8 following commission reports.
Commissioner Long?
Well, as I'm sure everybody will do, I'll get to be first to congratulate and thank really all of our years of service employees today, and I'd like to thank the people with 5 and 19 and 22. I mean, you know, that said it many times, say it again, you know, we're nothing without our employees, and so I appreciate those people choosing to stay with us and further their careers, because most of them I think have advanced to some degree, you know, since they've come here, and that's how we get better. And so I want to thank those folks for their hard work every day and their commitment to the city. And then, you know, kind of follows up then with the pay plan that I was one of them that participated in the group to review and go over, and there's a lot went into that, and it's expensive to keep up, but we have to do it. I mean, it's, you know, and it's so I'm glad to see, you know, that we're going to be getting some things adjusted and staying competitive. You know, still some areas where we could probably never be completely competitive, but we're trying, and want our employees to know that too. So that's all I have.
Mr. Fankhauser?
Well, I too want to thank those that got the awards today for 10 and 20 year. That says something for our city when we can keep people around for even up to 30 and 40 years. I wanted to ask a question about, do we get rid of the recycle trailers in the winter? Because I went around Friday and tried to fill one, and the one at Third was gone, and the one over by Westlake was gone.
Was it after hours or during the
No,
day?
it was during the day.
I wonder if we had picked those up, but usually we pick them up one at a time, so unless you were
Yeah.
just following us around,
I don't
you
know.
kept striking
Well,
out. What's
I'm
the odds of
thinking,
that?
what's
First
the
time? I'll
deal?
check. I believe
Check on
we still have them, and
Yeah,
we leave them
because-
out year round, and unless it was over the Thanksgiving break and there was a 4-day extended period,
Yeah,
and we were worried
maybe
about
that's
the
what-
overflow, and I don't know.
But I
don't have
couldn't
an
find
answer.
it, so I went down on Terminal finally. But
Yeah.
and looking forward to the mayor's party tonight. Is that at 6 or 6:30?
6:30.
That's all.
Commissioner Cessna?
Again, congratulations to the staff that have served the years of service. It's great to keep and retain staff. Kind of going with what Commissioner Law said, we improved the pay plan to keep and trying to retain staff, but it shows that we are retaining some staff, and they are advancing in their careers and everything, as it's shown. But again, we have a great staff, and it shows really well in our community how good our community is. So congratulations to them on their years of service. Good sales tax results that were shown in the city manager's report. It looks like we'll have a record year.
6.2.
If it keeps going like it has, so good for us. That's all I got. Thank you.
Commissioner Dale?
I also want to comment on the employees that got their awards today for 10 and 20 years. And as I've said many times during commission meetings, that our number one asset is the employees that we have. And with the city that we're growing, and as we go forward, we need those type of people to continue to do the work that we need. And if we can increase their salaries, that would just be just that much better. And I'm glad we were able to do that. I do thank each and every one of them, and all those that are sitting here that are staff, to Matt and to all the people out there in the trenches. I thank all of you very much, and I want to thank. No one's here from the street department, but we were lucky we didn't get hit with a lot of ice, but. They were diligent enough to get out when they seen that we were starting to build up a little bit and get a little salt and sand out there in the streets. Really opened up the day after that, and I imagine that got our citizens back out for Black Friday and spending them trash dollars. So that's very important. I thank them and thank all of our employees. That's all I have.
Well, this will be the 5th thank you to the employees from the commissioners and I'm sure the community, but I just hope employees realize how much this commission and the community appreciate your staying with the city and your continued years of service, how much you're appreciated, and because this organization is only as good as its employees. So thank you. And also, over the weekend, I've heard a lot of positive comments from people that don't normally live here. They were home for the holidays, about Main Street, about how gorgeous it is, about the 3 lanes, how it makes it look so much more like a true Main Street with more cars parked, and because we changed the angles and everything. It just lots of positive comments, and that just thought I would share that. And that's all I have. So I think we need a motion for.
I mean, that the city council should an hour, 30 minutes.
Can we take 5?
Yeah, I'll make it to where we can take 5.
Okay.
I would say an hour.
Okay. I make a motion that we move the city commission go into executive session at this time, or at 2:10, for the purpose of discussing matters of non-elected personnel and their contractual obligations, because if this matter were discussed in open session, it might invade the privacy of those discussed, and that the city commission will convene in open session in the city commission chambers at 310.
210.
Or
No,
310.
310.
Yeah, because reconvene.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay.
Be a short